Kelsey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And so tell us about who you are. We obviously got connected because of social media, because you've gone viral, but look at where this speech has taken you and your journey and your all of the things that led to here and now. So give us, where are you at right now? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's so incredible to think back about it. Right now I'm motivational speaking, which I never expected. So I gave the speech last year and then it went viral, which is how you found me. But yeah, I mean, I was invited to speak at universities and nonprofits and just meeting the most incredible people all around the country for the last year. And now I'm headed back to grad school at NC State to continue doing social work. So I'd love to get my master's in social work. And we just talked about I'm trying to apply that to sports, and I think there's such a need for sports social work, but also continuing to speak and just meeting incredible people and being on podcasts and all these kinds of things.
I love it. And a lot of our podcast listeners are obviously in the softball world, and we have other sports too. But I think what caught my eye the most is we all know that there were some controversial keynote speeches out there from commencements all across the country. And what I loved about your speech is you had such a beautiful unifying message that not a lot of people talk about. And it's this idea of identity. And I loved this quote. It's, what you are going to do is a very different question from who are you going to be. Can you talk about that? Where did that come from? And kind of talk about, how did you come to this discovery that we're human beings, not human doings?
I love that so much because it really was such a process of so many things. It was I looked back at my journals a lot to write my speech, and a lot of it was during that recovery period of me being done with softball, and all of these goals that I had and things that I wanted to do weren't really possible anymore. And just kind of coming to terms with how I was gonna have purpose in my life that was separate from like achievement and awards. And I also just had really incredible people like my family and I don't know, my professors that were just reminding me of who I was as Kelsey, and my kindness or my smile or things that weren't necessarily reflected on paper, but that I still had to give. My faith played a huge role in coming to that and really being able to separate those two things. And yeah, so a lot of it, I really love talking about like I didn't really make this comeback on the softball field and set records or do these things I wanted to do, but I felt like I had made this comeback on the inside. And I'd seen a lot of people around me do the same thing throughout their time at school. And I just really wanted to celebrate that and reflect that. And I don't think we celebrate that enough, like finding your smile at the end of a difficult time, being a comeback, and like this person that you choose to be after some tough times or difficult things or whatever. That's something that you always have, the ability to do. So
Yeah.
it just came from that whole process of journaling and I don't know, reflecting and stepping outside of myself and meeting other people and
And I
yeah.
think part of that is we don't ever expect that we're going to get injured, right? And so I think you're a little bit in this conundrum of, okay, I'm injured, now what? This label of softball player, I literally cannot contribute in that identity the way that I used to, whether it's an injury that you're going to
Yeah.
come back from. And in your case, you had to make that decision, and there were even more physical struggles based on your concussion. And so, again, in your speech, you kind of talked about literally what could I have done? There's nothing that a previous identity, even if you wanted to, everything shifted in a moment. And so the question that most clients and most athletes ask is, Coach AB, how do I bounce back from an injury? How do I get through this injury? And I think our society is quick to say, well, you'll get back and you'll bounce back from it. And we're kind of negating those fears of, but what if I don't?
Yeah. No, that's so true. Well, and I think even in relation to softball, like when that door was shut, on my resume or whatever, it's like student athlete, and I don't have that anymore. But then to really like appreciate and dig into, well, what did softball teach me? Like, what kind of person did I become? Like, regardless of if it worked out the way I wanted, like, I became really resilient and strong and able to speak my mind, which translates into my life right now. and a patient teammate, like able to, see when my teammates are struggling and all these really personal qualities. And we say they stick with you once the game is over, but they really do. And they apply to life in the most incredible way. And you don't even really see that until you're out of it. But all of those things that you gain that can't be taken away from you, even when the game is over and the title of student athlete isn't mine anymore, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And so how are you leaning into that today? I know you're chasing more big goals, but do you get caught up in the illusion of, okay, well, now I'm not chasing softball, but now I'm chasing my masters. And I think it's really hard for us as competitive athletes, like we can't really turn that competitiveness off. So how do you find that balance between, knowing the difference between, okay, I can have goals, I can be competitive, but at the end of the day, I'm still Kelsey. Whether I succeed or fail, like I'm still
Yes.
Kelsey.
No, that's such a good question because it really is. It's so funny. Like that whole process that I talk about in my speech, like it was not just a one and done, my life is different now. Like it's such a practice every day. And it really is. I'm someone that journals every morning or like at least just tries to pray or sit in quiet for 5 minutes. Um, and even when it's really busy and I'm speaking or I'm doing these great things that are, again, now I'm chasing motivational speaking and masters. I just pray for the right intentions. And it's always like, I don't know, my prayer every morning is that it's not about what I need to say, it's about what other people might need to hear through me. And I just pray that I just have the right intentions and in my actions, my thoughts, my words. And so just really settling myself down and remembering the gratitude I have that even my story is is I don't know, to help people and not to just spill. And yeah, so I think just like sitting in that quiet and really focusing on my intentions. And when my social media started to blow up, like I got really, I don't know, attached to it, excited about it. And that was one of those things where once I started getting attached to the likes and comments, like I put it away for 6 months. It was like, it's not about becoming famous. It's not about reaching a ton of people. It's really about staying authentic and genuine to that, I don't know, that positivity and that story and making sure it's grounded. And so when I'm not grounded, I step away from all the noise. And then when I'm ready to come back, I come back and try to produce good things.
Yeah. And your humility shines through that because I think the mistake that we make a lot of the times is that in order to impact, in order to be a leader, I have to be polished. I have to have a good performance. And I'm thinking about all of my college girls that I speak with on a weekly basis. We always fall into the temptation that I have to be a starter on the field to be a leader. I have to be polished. I have to be positive all the time. And we know that those are false perceptions. We know that those only add more pressure, but it's so easy to fall into that mindset because that's what society tells us is Facebook likes and social media likes and the perfect picture. And we have to have it all together on the field and good grades. And now we have NIL and, all of the things that these
Yeah,
athletes are facing. It's wild.
it's a lot of pressure. Yeah, I mean, it's so true though, and the always positive and running everywhere and just the things that, yeah, we're supposed to show outwardly that we're put together and we're good. And yeah, I just think that vulnerability and authenticity, it's so powerful and it's so beautiful, even just giving this speech. And my favorite part isn't even really, other people seeing it, it's hearing other people's stories back and like witnessing people talk about how they see themselves after they watched it or their life-changing injury or loss or story. And just how beautiful that we really are all connected when we kind of peel back that layer a little bit and our stories are so different, but we all connect to some of those feelings. And so, yeah, I think it can be tough as a student athlete. You want to be all put together, but there's something really powerful and real about just your authenticity and talking about those tough days and how
Yeah.
real they are.
Well, and I think part of that is when you're in the muck and you're in the darkness, you had to walk through some really dark days. And had you had to write a speech or help pull somebody else out of their depths of their darkness while you're still in the dark, it's hard. And in the moment, you're questioning, why is this happening? And whatever you're comfortable sharing, I would love for you to share more of your story simply from the perspective of you're on the other side of it but there was probably a time where you thought, this is never going to end. This isn't going to end the way that I want This is feeling yucky and gross. And I just want to run and hide from all of this trial and tribulation. But now on the other side of it, you can inspire other girls who are going through the same thing. And so if you're listening to this and you're facing dark moments and you're wondering, is this ever going to get better? I know this probably isn't the answer that you want to hear, but every story, every trial that you're facing can be used for good. And so I would really invite you, can you kind of speak to those girls that are struggling with maybe their identity or playing time, or maybe their playing time and their coaching staff is affecting their confidence? They're feeling the pressure of, being a starter or having to be a leader. What would you say to those college girls right now, or even high school girls?
Absolutely. I would say I love the way, but like I'm on this other side. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm so joyful doing all these things. But there was really that time of darkness. And when you're in it, you really can't 100% know that you're going to come out of it. But it is so much better to hold on to that hope that it will get better, and almost just even like visualize yourself there, even when it feels impossible. Because I remember, and I'll obviously share more of my story, but just in that really slow darkness, um, just feeling like if I can just see to tomorrow and I can just see myself as happy and try to let time do its job a little bit at a time and hold on to hope that it'll get better. And I don't know when, and I don't really feel it right now, but just better to hope than to not. Um, I would say
Yeah, I
just
mean, I
hold on
think
to
like a
that.
specific example. I mean, you were talking a little bit about this. Let's just start with high school. Let's start with the pressures of recruiting, right? Of like, am I ever going to get recruited? We don't know when and how we're
God,
going to get
yeah.
recruited. And so speak to that. Let's start there.
Yeah, for sure. So I obviously grew up, the rules were a little bit different. So softball was super early in recruiting. I mean, girls in middle school, all around you are committing to schools. Um, And so I was playing for a pretty high level travel team, traveling all across the country, waking up at 4 in the morning to practice, like softball, playing in college was the goal. And I'd committed to a school downtown Chicago my sophomore year of high school. And then ironically, I had two really bad concussions in that period of time. I had three in high school overall and had kind of been through that injury, that recovery, that several months of head injury, thinking that was my challenge in my softball career, and that was going to be the thing I overcome the most. And headed into my senior year, I just didn't feel like it was the right fit for me. And my parents did such a good job of really talking to me about where am I going to be happy with or without softball, and that school just wasn't the right fit. And my dad would even say, like, let's say you get injured, let's say you don't play, and I would be so frustrated. I'm like, that's never going to happen to me. Like, why would you even say that? But they had a little bit of a point of like, look for schools that you're going to be happy with regardless of softball, because if I pour all my happiness into softball, like it's not really a good foundation. And so I decommitted from that school in Chicago super amicably, but I was headed into senior year with no schools. And I still had this really big goal. I wanted to play in college. I wanted to play at a high level. I went to a big high school, so I really wanted a big school. Um, and then that summer, I started talking to North Carolina State. Like they started to show interest in me. And I went out there for a camp in August. Well, the week before was one of my head injuries. So I got injured the week before camp. And so I get there and I can't really do anything except for hit. And I'm like, the timing of this is just terrible, right? Like I get to the school and I fall in love immediately. I mean, NC State is beautiful. It's in the ACC. They have a really good social work program, which is what I want to study. Raleigh is just full of the most amazing people. I'm from Illinois, so I'm like Midwest girl. I want to go play in a warm state. Just all of these things together. I just felt like it was home. And so I decided actually that was where I was going, softball or no softball. And that August, the coaches were like, we love you. We see you playing here. We'll be in touch. And then for 4 months, just ghosted me. I mean, nothing. Like I'm emailing, calling, texting, and no reply. And so in those 4 months, I basically decided like NC State is where I'm going. Softball or no softball, this is where I'm going to be happy. I'm applying. It's the only school I applied to, and that's where I'm going. And then I kept, DMing the coach, but it's hard because all these girls around me are committing to their schools, posting their visits. I'm still practicing every morning as if I'm going to be playing in college, but it's still up in the air. And I'm trying to play at this huge ACC school, and they're ghosting me, even though they said they wanted me. And even that was just a tornado of thoughts. But it was a blessing. Ultimately worked out. They replied to my Twitter message and invited me back out that December, and were super great, just trying to get their feet on the ground. They had just been hired. And then I committed that December to play for them the next year. So even that whole journey of getting recruited and the pressure, and especially the comparison of it, I mean, just social media and rankings and all of those things, like it really is so all consuming, especially in travel ball, when your whole world from a young age to that point is softball. It's really difficult to step outside of that. And I was fortunate because I didn't realize how much getting involved in some other things in high school and best buddies and volunteering and things like that was really going to save me in college. Um, because yeah, it's tough. So I get to NC State and it really is dream come true. It's magic. Like I live for the schedule, the 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. on campus. And like I'm just running with it. Like I'm there early, late, extra, just so in love with my team, so in love with the school, representing them. I was such a walking stereotype in every, team issued gear piece that I had. And that first year, that freshman year, we had the best start in program history. Like we were really making a good run. My coaches and I had a good relationship. They were married and just really supportive. You're what this program represents. We're so glad to have you. My exit meetings were always good. And then COVID hit the spring of my freshman year. And so I think all of that balance, because I had been involved in research, I was really involved in my social work department. I was someone that put school first too, and so I was just really involved in the school in a lot of different areas. All of that balance really zeroed in because COVID, of course, everyone here witnessed COVID, moved online and shut down. And so for those next 6 months, I moved home and trained every day to come back and to play. And then we come back that fall for my sophomore year. And I mean, we're really not allowed to go anywhere except home and the softball field. We're getting tested. You're only allowed to be with your pods of people. And we had some issues within our program, but right, especially as a freshman, you come in with these rose-colored glasses. And when people are screaming at you and your teammates are screaming at you, and you kind of just chalk it up to the fact that it's D1 and it's going to be hard and you need to suck it up and do it. And obviously I'm one of those people that's like tough it out and do it and get over it. And so, headed into that sophomore year, we really started to see some of the cracks in our program that were a little bit more than just it's tough. It was really, getting on girls for being stupid or their weight, and teammates just screaming at other teammates, punching walls, throwing bats, like just this crossing a little bit over the line of what's accountability and what's a toxic environment. And I struggle to even say that sometimes because you have such upheld respect for your coaches and you feel this guilt when they bring you here and you're so grateful for this opportunity. And yet, there's some of these issues that are presenting themselves. But like my year was still going well. My exit meetings are going well. I'm set to start in the spring. And then I had a medical issue that was a little bit unrelated my sophomore year. But things are still going pretty well. We're starting to, have some issues. And then that spring, basically like halfway through the year, we had lost a series and we were flying home. And during this layover, our starters. So my coaches split it up into starters and non-starters every week. Like if you were a starter, you were on the field, you were practicing, and if you were a non-starter, you were like sent to the cages to do whatever you wanted to do. And like you would maybe get an at bat, maybe you wouldn't. Like it was very, two-sided. And
But in that
so
moment, just to preface this for everyone listening, whether you're in high school, you're a parent, you're a coach, I think when we start to share these stories, that is a red flag. but
Mhm.
we don't know it at the time, right? And so you're like, well, this is just
100%.
normal. And so if you're in a program where that's happening, kind of be mindful that what kind of culture is being kind of produced, right? Of like,
Yes.
what's the culture? What's the conversation? And we're not calling out coaches in this situation, but what you're doing by sharing your story is saying, look, you're going to face all sorts of things.
Mhm.
And in that moment, right? Like you're garnering lessons. So yeah, continue.
Say like if you're crying every day and your teammates are screaming and shit, like you should talk to people outside of your world. And I think that was something that we really struggled with, especially with COVID, is you were only allowed to be around, like everything was so enhanced because we were at the softball field all day long from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. when everything else in the world is shut down. There's no balance. You're only with these people. And so your world becomes all consuming. And when that's what you know, you kind of think you're crazy for feeling like it's bad because who are you going to talk to that's not also in it, you know? So you're kind of in that guilty stage. And also you want to get in the game. So it's like that selfish of like, well, I just want to take care of myself. But then I'm seeing all these things happen to people around me, and it's just this, tough pull. Um, and so basically during that layover, so a bunch of our starters got drunk at the airport and to the point of like, starting to have an altercation with people at our gate. They were almost not going to let us fly home. It was like a whole thing. And when we landed, we got back and some of those players got suspended for the week. And we get in the locker room and some of those players are like, whatever, I don't care anyways, like this program sucks. And which is tough to hear, right? Like been on the bench with a medical injury, and you just when you pour your whole heart into something, like you want the people around you to really care. And so we were just kind of falling apart at the seams in a lot of ways that was starting to unravel visibly now, and that had kind of been just brewing for a long time. And so that next week, we had like a safe space meeting, is what they called it, to talk about how we felt about the situation, talk through our feelings, what we think should happen. And, at one point, I just basically said that I felt like we could have seen this coming because these particular players and people had been allowed to break rules for so long. And I think one of the issues that we had, even prior, was that our standards were so different depending on who you were. So these particular players could break a rule and be totally fine. And then I had a friend or some teammates who were cut, absolutely belittled and screamed at for breaking the same exact rule or something even less than. And so it was our standards weren't standards. They were very like fluid, which is really difficult to have a culture and have a team that's has good camaraderie if you're setting the standard differently for each player based on their performance. And it really puts the emphasis back on if you perform, you're valuable, they care about you, they'll talk to you. And if you're not playing, they're not going to talk to you. They're going to make you do all these other things. They're going to tell you you're stupid, you suck, and you're embarrassing, you shouldn't be there. And so you're right, that puts a lot of extra emphasis on trying to do good. And so I basically said that we had seen this coming, and that I still love them as people, right? Like they would come to my house if they needed something. I love them. I wasn't, writing them off as people, but I don't know that they deserve to come back when they don't even really aren't showing any sort of apology or desire to come back. Because we didn't see that either. And the very next day, my coaches, call us in a meeting and they are like, if you could have seen this coming, shame on you. This is your team too. If you feel like this wasn't the first mistake, like shame on you. Um, you should have handled it, which is something that we tried to do. So yeah, so they were like, shame on you. Basically took all of my words from the day before and verbatim kind of yelled them back at the team. And so I called them, like wanting to talk through it and ask for a meeting, and basically just shared I felt like that wasn't the most appropriate thing to do, to take words from a safe space meeting and throw them back in that manner. Like I want to have a real conversation about it. I just felt like that was uncalled for. And they said, they were like, the same way you felt attacked by what we said, we felt attacked by what you said on Wednesday. Like, you're just jealous because we favored them. You're being self-righteous. Like, honestly, Kelsey, like what's wrong with you? Yeah, like we felt attacked by what you said. You're attacking our coaching, whatever. And so I'm trying to talk through this with them, but I mean, at that point, I was in the bullpen the rest of the season. We had like one more week anyways, a week of ACCs and another week. And those players came back and sat one game and played, and it wasn't really handled. So again, like those standards weren't really set across the board, which could have been a really good opportunity for us to grow as a team. And it wasn't handled that way because our starters who are sitting are now watching non-starters who are struggling in the field and making fun of them. And it's just a whole thing. And so over that summer, we basically had half the team leave. And up to that point, I mean, over my 3 years, we probably had almost 20 girls transfer, cut, quit. I don't want to say 22 and a coach, which is just a lot of players in the course of 3 years. So it was one of those things where I really did question myself, like, is this a personal problem? Am I just not cut out for it? Am I overreacting? But I'd like to think in reality, like a lot of us were experiencing the same thing. And so we were heading into junior year, but I love NC State and I want to play at NC State. And I poured my heart into it. I want to represent it. And you're just so attached at that point to everything that you've worked for and, your teammates, the school. And so I meet with my coaches that summer, exit meeting goes well. They're like, you're going to start next year. We're going to be fine. We talk through our issues and we're good to go. And so over that summer, I'm training, meeting the freshmen, touring players, like our relationship is kind of back to normal. But then, headed into the fall, we're all really committed to making this a more positive space. And then almost immediately, it's just not like they're screaming at us one day for, not being loud enough. They're screaming at us the next for embarrassing ourselves. They're screaming, like, it's just this double standard at all times. And again, yelling at players for very personal things. I think when it moves into a personal, attack is when it isn't just about how you're playing. Because I've had some tough coaches. I really have, and I adore them. Like coaches that get on me and push me to be better. I love it. I really do. But I think there's that difference in personal frustration and some vitriol there. And my teammates at that point, right? You vacation together, you eat together, you hang out together all the time. They're my sisters. And so I'm spending every day with them, and already they're telling me that they're not going to survive the fall, that they're rating themselves on their mental health surveys 2 out of 10. Just sharing some really severe mental health problems.
And not only are you trying to pull yourself up and figure out this situation, but now you feel like as a leader, as a upperclassman, you are now responsible for your sisters. And that's a really heavy place to be in.
I appreciate it because it is as a person. And I think even that difficult thing and wanting to play and stay in your own lane, but at some point, like, this becomes more important, and almost kind of knowing like if I address this, it could end my career. But at the same time, like, yeah, they're your sisters. Like, at the end of the day, like, how do you, I don't know, not be there for them, not support them? Like, it's so much bigger. But yeah, it is hard. You're dealing with it yourself too. And basically I ended up meeting with the sports psychologist and our trainer because I didn't want to just go and, meet haphazardly. Like, everything I did, I wanted it to be really intentional. I wanted to make sure I was doing things the right way, saying things the right way. I didn't want to cause problems in the program. I really truly was so committed to making it better. And I can say that that's truly where my heart was at. And so I met with our administration and asked them for meetings, like for them to meet with us, because I didn't want to give secondhand information, but I had all these teammates that would talk to them if they came to us. They were just obviously too scared to go to the admin's office. Rightly so, after, I had gone, and my coaches had found out that I had gone, even though it was kind of supposed to be anonymous. And there was just a miscommunication and them feeling like I was trying to get them fired, which I really wasn't. I just wanted it to get better. I don't know what I wanted, and I'd worked hard for them for 2 years. Like, I really did have this relationship with them, but yeah, I mean, would stop practice just to scream at me and, put me on the bullpen schedule, even though I was an outfielder. And so I was working more than our starting catcher on the bullpen schedule 4 days a week and trying to balance work and school and extra practices. So I'm there from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. catching morning bullpen, afternoon bullpen. And it was just one of those things where I felt it and I felt the energy change. And so I tried to meet with them directly again. And I just basically asked them, like, if this isn't going to work, I feel like you're frustrated with me. I feel like you're angry with me. And I really do want to play. And we talked about me playing, and I just want to open communication. Like, what do you see going forward? And they were like, we're only not talking to you because you're not talking to us. Like, you're projecting, you're making this so much harder for yourself than it needs to be. Like, I don't know why you're acting crazy, but you're gonna play. Your numbers are up, but honestly, like, you're just making this so much harder for yourself. Stop projecting. And that was kind of the moment of like, should I go somewhere else? Should I, continue to like work this out with you guys, and like that avenue of where to go? And then like 2 weeks later, um, we're at practice and half of our team's in the field and half of us are running bases and I'm running bases. And then they swap every player out but me. And so I'm continuing to run and I'm at first base and our shortstop is coming through for a double play. And so as I'm sliding into second base, instead of making a lane, she just came straight through. And so her like knee first full body just went straight into my face. Um, and that was my injury. And I mean, the field's spinning, the world is spinning, my head's pounding, and my coach just starts clapping and is like, good play, shortstop, let's move on. And so I kind of stand up and like make my way off the field. My trainer comes to me. I'm at that point, like my head's pounding, but like my heart is just broken almost, at the same time. Um, the very next morning, I get called into their office at like 7 in the morning, and they're just almost like, you could have permanent brain damage. Like, like, how do you expect to play in the spring if you don't play in the fall? And almost just kind of like talking in this circle. And they're like, well, it was way scarier for us than it was for you. And just like this, I don't even, it's hard to remember. Like, I have pieces just because I kind of documented it, but like, I was like, I can't do this right now. I need to take 6 weeks. And so over those 6 weeks, like I'm seeing 6 different doctors. I had braces put back on to fix my jaw. I had nerve damage in my neck, like just all of these things. I started failing out of my classes. And so over the course of those 6 weeks, because I had had so many concussions in high school, the more you get hit, like sometimes the longer it takes to recover. I had never experienced some of the cognitive symptoms that I was feeling, and the double vision and the um just brain fog and confusion. And kind of over the course of those 6 weeks, it was pretty much decided that I was going to have to medically retire. And so it was this gradual and abrupt thing all at the same time.
Yeah.
But I loved my teammates so much that I was like, I'm going to stay on this team, even though I'm going to medically retire. There's no chance I'm playing softball again. And I'm kind of gradually grieving that. But I'm like, I need to stay on this team because this needs to get resolved. But then I meet with administration and they're like, they basically tell me it's a personal problem. It's a personal communication problem. Why do you even keep playing? Like, why don't you just quit? And so the lack of support there was tough. And then about 6 weeks in, my coaches are, you should be better now. What's taking so long? Clearly you look fine. So why aren't you back? And my teammates who I just love, like, I mean, it's hard to talk about because I loved, like, when I said they were my sisters, I really meant that. And they're coming to my house, giving me hugs. I'm explaining to them, where I'm at, trying to visit the locker room, leaving them notes. And then, I mean, overnight, my coaches met with a group of them. And the very next day, I get a call just like, cussing me out. Like, why aren't you back yet? Like, you look fine. Clearly you're faking it if you look fine and you're not back yet. Why are you being so selfish? And so I held this meeting with my team, and about half of them that were newer to the program, which I think kind of says a lot about people that come in with fresh eyes, they were so supportive and like loving and like this is not okay and we need to be supportive. And then this other half of my team, the ones that I had really played with for 3 years and loved and were my sisters, I mean, overnight went from we love you, we're here from you always to honestly, Kelsey, why are you being selfish? You look fine. Like you're clearly faking the worst pain you've ever known in your life. And I think it was obviously in that moment, I already knew I was going to be done with softball. I'd already decided that with doctors, but I was just I was a wreck
Yeah.
because part of that identity wasn't just losing softball, it was losing that entire community, all those friends, everything I knew myself to be. I really blamed myself a lot. Like maybe they're right. Like maybe I'm crazy. And a lot of brain injury comes with overall confusion and some paranoia and, can kind of lead into a lot of self spiral of like maybe what is wrong with me because you can't see it, you can't measure it, you're only articulating to your doctors and you could see it visibly through my jaw and my neck injury, but that spiral of, doubting yourself and being so confused. I mean, it just wrecked me. It really did. And those next few months, because I'm still living with my teammates. I'm still passing by the softball field every day. It's the center of campus at NC State. And when we talk about that darkness, I forget because it's been, a couple years now, but it's like that I couldn't really read. I was struggling. By that point, I developed this like a late onset stutter. So I was really struggling to speak clearly and articulate my words. I mean, couldn't move without pain. I was in pain all the time. And I started having these personality changes. So I would very happy person. Like I mostly present very happy. If you watch my speech, like I'm a joyful person, but I mean, like I was not fun to be around. I would cry and I would yell at my family and then I would forget everything that I said. And everything that I had known myself to be, student, athlete, involved, good teammate, like trying to be a good leader, like was just done, like thrown away. And that was really when it was like I have nothing to give. I have no performance to offer. All these people, I'm semi alone and my faith personally is really what brought me out of that of like I have nothing to give and I'm still loved. And that was really defining for me of like what kind of person was I created to be that has nothing to do with softball and nothing to do with the grades that I have and everything to do with how I move forward. But it's tough to believe that on a daily basis. Like it's tough when you're going through that and every day just feels like it's dragging to see yourself all the way down that road. And so it really was celebrating like the first day I came home from school and did it. Or like the first day I was able to like read a whole page of a book without, getting confused and like these really little milestones in my family pouring into me and just trying to picture myself of what the end of that road would look like. Um yeah, so I mean that was the end of my softball career and it's so crazy because up to that point when you're playing softball or you're in a sport like you haven't really had those reps of like resilience in terms of seeing yourself outside of the sport. And so it's just very crushing. I'm like, who am I outside of this? And how am I going to find that magic in my life again? Is anything going to feel that exciting? What else am I good at? And how do I even do that? Because I can't even really talk right or move right or I don't even feel like myself or recognize myself. But I mean, God, if anything, it's just that there's always that hope and it takes time. But when you're really focusing on the light and just trying to be grateful, like even when I was like, you don't always feel like there's things to be grateful for, but there are. And I kept that gratitude journal and in my heart and in my family. And kind of by the end of that junior year, I mean, I was done with NC State. Like I was so over it. I was frustrated at the support. And then I really was able to separate the athletic department and some of those people that were hurtful and really claim back like the school that I loved and the professors that kept me in school and the doctors that kept me sane and healed me. And it was so beautiful. It was this really gradual, um, like regaining of just this love for the school. And then I wanted to move home, and my parents were like, go find some friends, like, go find some people, like, please go try to live your senior year, like, go, make the most of it. And I found these friends on Facebook, and they were just the most loving, invitational, like, just fully accepted me. I'm embarrassed, but my braces are huge. I have screws in my mouth. Like, I'm not the same. And I don't even want to go make friends. And they were just like, come with us, come meet all our friends, and invited me. And then over the course of that last year, it was really, from recovery to finding that joy, it was like, who am I and what smile do I have to give? And even stepping outside of myself and meeting people through social work that had been through some really terrible things, and seeing their hearts and their energy and finding inspiration from them to be like, these are such beautiful people that have been through difficult things. Like, I can't be my old self. I'm not a softball player. I'm not even the same, old version of my personality, but I can be such a great version of myself if I just try. And so yeah, that's I've been talking for a long time about you.
I think leaning into that hope, I think throughout all of that thread, and there's a couple of beautiful allegories here for you are passionate about mental health, and some of the similar symptoms of a concussion are also emulated in mental health struggles. And so there are girls all over that are facing some of these things, and we're too afraid to seek help outside, right? Or if I seek help from the psychology department, or if I seek help from the counseling department, are my coaches going to see this as a weakness? Or is there retaliation? Or, man, maybe if things are really as toxic as they feel, who are you going to go to outside of the program? And what are you willing to risk the last 16 years of the hard work that you've put into your sport that you love so much? We have this tendency to, why would I risk that? And I'm just so glad that we talked even before we hit record to have you share this, because there is so much strength in vulnerability. Because even if your message today, if you're listening to this and you're like, yep, Kelsey, I was meant to hear this today, I would really encourage you to reach out to Kelsey, because if your story impacts one person, I think there are so many girls all across college campuses and even high schools that are in the darkness. And if you can be that one light for them. The other thing that I was going to mention, and your faith is what defines you and how you pulled yourself through. That's just one component of what saw you through that darkness. But your faith, the term Jesus is closest to the brokenhearted. I've experienced deep grief in losing my father. I would have never have experienced a faith transformation of who I am today had I not walked through that darkness. And who was there waiting for me, right? Of like, he just wants to be with you in your sorrows. And whether you're strong in your faith or not, I think that there's this immense hope in something bigger than yourself, whether that's your faith, whether that's your family, your support system. I think we have to get out of this identity. And that's kind of the whole theme of this, right? When we get out of this identity of you are just a softball player, sometimes you have to go through some dark days to finally realize that. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it's needed.
No, absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that too. Like, just that had to be so hard. And even just, yeah, like to be able to look at it as like you're gaining this closeness or the empathy to relate to other people. Like, there are like those broken things, because we can't change them. Like, we might as well believe that God can turn them into something beautiful and use them for good. And even when we can't see what that is, just like allowing ourselves to be open to that. I think you just put that so beautifully.
And part of this, right, is this hope. So I love this conversation today. We'll link some resources below, but if you feel like you are hearing Kelsey's story and you're thinking, okay, this is great, but where's the next step? We highly encourage you to reach out. Don't discount your mental health. It's okay to not be okay. Whether we link resources below to the hotline, you can Google it on your own campus, or reach out to us. But looking back now, I would love to ask you the final question that we ask everyone on the podcast is the time traveler question. So, Kelsey, you're a time traveler. You could go back in time. You can pick any time on your timeline. If you could go back and tell your past self one message, what would you go back and tell her?
Tell her that she's loved. I feel like I would tell her so many things, but I would tell her that she's loved, and I would tell her that I'm proud of her and to keep working because it's going to be worth something. And I think even when I was younger, I always pictured that worth something to mean success at NC State. And right now, like it has been like the privilege of my life to be going around to speak to people and see my face on the internet, which is crazy, and like just see like 4 minutes of this moment like turn into something so beautiful, and my life is so rich and abundant and joyful. Um, but it was because of that girl that kept trying and working hard and trying to be a good person. I would just tell her, like, you being kind and loving is your greatest strength. It doesn't make you weak, and you are so loved for that. So that's
I
such a good question. Oh my
Well, and
gosh.
I knew that you would have a great answer for that. So, Kelsey, thank you truly for your vulnerability. And for those of you guys that are listening, truly find us on Instagram, reach out to Kelsey. She loves sharing her story, and we'll link that as well in the notes. But I just have so much gratitude. And this isn't, we'll stay in touch. And I would love to have you come speak at the retreat and so many opportunities. And you're going to continue to speak and get your master's. And the best is ahead. I can just see it.
Yes, well, we'll definitely be connected, but thank you so much. This was so wonderful. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And yeah, please reach out to me if you feel inclined. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelsey.